Yo guys, it's Michael from Chess Lifestyle, and yeah, today we're gonna do a fairly normal stream, all things considered. Since recently I just haven't had the time to do much chess training at all. But we are up to 2,349 seconds. Subscribers, which means we are on 39.15 minutes of training today. And I see that I forgot to show the timer, so let me reveal that. There we go. Okay, we better begin. 38 minutes, 50 seconds, let's go. So, the first thing I wanted to do today, actually, I was playing a bunch of Blitz in Liverpool today. Basically, Dylan plays for the Liverpool chess team, and they have like a kind of social on Sundays in a very trendy kind of bar, cafe kind of place. There were some nice games, and I wanted to just go through any of the games where I felt like maybe I wanted to address something in the opening. And I think I really just had one question I had for myself. I think on the whole, like my openings were pretty solid and pretty strong. But this one was, I just wanted to like double check some stuff. So basically, it's this bishop e3 line. Objectively speaking, it's pretty strong. And I've been playing with d5. Also, be very careful with like engine evaluation, because as you can see here, it looks like the position's plus 0.8, 0.9. One move later, suddenly it's plus 0.6, 0.4, right? So Lichess even struggles to evaluate these positions. In this position, I wanted to like maybe look a bit deeper at how to play this, because recently I've been playing this move h5, which I know is not great. Okay, maybe I should move my camera over to the other side, because the stream looks really weird right now, like all of the information on one side of the board, on one side of the screen. Basically I've been playing this h5, which I know isn't great. But I had a really difficult position basically where I ended up I played like knight h6. What did my opponent do? I think they played bishop d3. Yeah, and this is the problem, right? Because I played knight f5, my opponent played knight f3, and the engine evaluates this as fine, right? And I've analyzed these kind of positions before, where the engine is very happy just to take on e3. And of all the games today, I basically lost 2 games, I don't know, one maybe like 10 or something. But the 2 games I lost, one of the games which I lost involved this kind of position, where I took the bishop, and they took back with the f-pawn, and what I found was that because I'm very often playing with e6 here, I just had tremendous pressure down on my f7 pawn. I got a bit overambitious, I then got into a bad position, and then I sacked the exchange, ended up having a lost endgame, and lost the game. So, I'm kind of curious actually of looking at these kind of positions a bit deeper to understand like why engine actually says that I'm doing okay here, because it definitely didn't feel like it when I was playing. And also just to consider like, what else can I play in this position here? Like any other moves that I should analyze. And then we're gonna do some puzzles. Let me. Okay. Yeah, I think chat should be working. Maybe someone can just test chat to see if it works. I would appreciate that a lot. Otherwise, I might go a whole stream without interacting with anyone. Let's just understand the structure a bit more. So this kind of position with these pawns, and I wanted to get some primary research, right? So I asked my opponent like how he felt about me taking this bishop, and he said he felt really good, because he said that his center becomes more solid, he gets the open f-file, and I kind of agree in some ways. So interestingly, that the engine is saying that I have to play for c5 straight away, and I don't know if that's just like in general like a good move in these kind of positions, or particularly against this structure. So let's just try and find out. So when we play c5, to me it doesn't really make too much sense, because when we take, white would be looking to recapture with the e-pawn anyway, right? So doesn't make too much sense to me. But apparently, engine is quite happy. So let's say they just castle, right? And we just castle, okay. And I guess, Yeah, so I think in the game, I feel like I didn't castle on the king side. What if they don't castle on the king side? What if they castle on the queen side? How terrible is this? Wow, it even recommends CD4. So undoubling these pawns. To play bishop h6, okay. And then I guess we're winning back the knight. With f6? No, we're not playing f6. I would have thought this was the point. Oh yeah, God, this is horrendous. I mean, maybe we're winning the piece, but our king is so weak. Yeah, just even this position, it feels like it's +3. Like, even though we win a whole piece here. Yeah, this is over. So, okay, this bishop h6 is the only reason why taking on d4 is good. Okay, so kind of like very tactical justifications. Yeah, I really don't like a position. You know what? I was actually watching, I don't know if any of you watched it, but there was this like Naroditsky and Robert Hess against Caruana and the Romanian vampire guy who I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name right now. Huh?
Christian Perilla.
Christian what? Chirilla, right, yeah. Okay, Dylan's busy painting right now. But yeah, Christian Chirilla. And there was a really interesting piece of advice that, it wasn't meant to be some advice, but I think like Daniel Naroditsky, wait, what was I going to say? What was my point? What was my point? Yeah, I remember the point. So the point was that he wanted to avoid tactical positions where he would feel that you would need only moves to survive. So it was like getting like close to like time trouble, and it was really interesting to see because like it felt like Hess wanted to play a move that may have been like objectively best, but Naroditsky was like no, like practically speaking, this is way too much risk. We shouldn't go for this plan. We should just like play something where there's more room for error, basically, not play something so critical. So I think this is the kind of same feeling when I see this kind of evaluation where like you have to play c5 now, and also there's a lot of tactical justification in the lines. Makes me feel a bit uncomfortable, like that I'm always going to be sharp enough to find like this exact move. This isn't really what I'm after. So if we go back, yeah, I wonder if there's a different way I can play without trying to just hunt this bishop, because I've had it enough times where I've actually noticed that I'm just really bad in these positions where f takes e3 is played. So maybe if I can find something else against this structure. I mean, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, maybe I can always avoid playing knight f5 or knight g4 to go off the bishop, and maybe play something like this. I mean, I always feel like in bishop f5 positions, okay, if they were to take, of course, I'm extremely happy trading one minor piece in the closed position. Also, guys, can someone send a chat on stream? Just any chat. It can literally just be hello or something. I just want to make sure that it's working, because if people are like chatting, because I did that on one stream where there was like, I don't know, like 20, 30 chats, and I didn't see anything because my chat wasn't related. Okay, Itachi, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so it's working, and welcome to the stream. So yeah, definitely bishop f4 is like kind of like the idea that is played in these kind of positions. But when they don't move the bishop, then it's actually quite tricky. But yeah, this move I never normally play. Yeah, hi, welcome, Frizz. Okay, yeah. Sorry for being so needy to ask people to chat, but I just wanted to make sure it was working. Now you can go on and just watch the stream. You don't need to chat. I just wanted to make sure. But yeah, basically this kind of position, I'm always a bit wary to play because of this. And I realized when the bishop takes back, I actually hit the queen. Oh, so there's no time. Because basically sometimes I'm a bit worried about this structure. Like, okay, imagine that the queen isn't hanging. That's so interesting. So, okay, that means in these kind of positions, and they play bishop d3, I can easily play this bishop f5 move because I never have to worry about this bishop h6 and taking on f5 because I'm hitting the queen. Okay, so whenever white plays queen d2, I can do this. Okay, this is really good to know. This is really good to know. So basically in this position, play knight h6, and yeah, I never have to worry about bishop d3 because I can always play bishop f5. Okay, this is really great to see. Okay, and I know I've actually got some theory here on castle's queenside. I actually have theory on queen a5. I've got like some really interesting ideas here, which I'm quite happy with. So then, are there any other critical moves here apart from castle's queenside? Bishop d3. Yeah, h3 is an interesting one as well. But again, yeah, this knight f5. Is there a way I can play this without trading for the bishop? I think most players do play bishop f4, but let's say they just ignore it. Yeah, is there any way to play this position without taking the bishop? That I really don't like how like white gets this open f file. It feels just so difficult. All right, let's give it one last try. Let's give it one last try to make this work. Because I'm suddenly seeing that there's this idea now with bishop f5. And I'm curious why bishop f5 is working here. But when we looked at it previously, right, that wasn't there that point that, like, yeah, this position. Because the bishop's already on d3, so we can't play bishop f5. Right. Yeah, Frizz is saying c5 in this kind of position. Yeah. So this is the position I wanted to look at. So c5 is what Engine recommends, but this move I don't understand. Maybe Fritz, you can explain what the logic is to you. But to me, it's like we're trying to undermine a pawn that is protected by a double pawn, right? So white would want to recapture. I realize that maybe it's like to just gain some space on the queen side, activate your knight. But to be honest, actually, bishop f5 looks really, really nice to me because the bishop. That means the any play on the open f-file is definitely not going to be as strong because, yeah, we've just got this bishop on f5 blocking this file. And if we can keep the bishop here, then I'm going to be very happy. So I just want to see if e6 is the idea or are they going to try and advocate knight d7, knight f8, knight e6. So let's imagine that we just castle. Aha, so they're even saying e6 is playable here because the one thing you've got to worry about with the bishop on g4, I mean f5 in the Gurgenitzer modern, is whether they play for g4 and trap your bishop. But yeah, here we see on rook g1 we just play h4, and this is the classic idea that they cannot play g4. And here, without the pawn on the f-file, they can't really play for g4. So okay, let's get this clear in our heads, like what the rules are of this opening. So let me just make some notes. So I can't make notes. You know what? Let's actually open it on a study. How can I do this? Like, ideally, I don't want to reveal this prep on stream, but I think it'll be fine. I just won't show the lines. But yeah, I actually want to make a note about this bishop e3 nuances. So I think like we've come to some very, very interesting conclusions here. Yeah, I've got like so many studies, like probably hundreds. Yeah. So, yeah, all the Patreon subscribers have access to all of these files and all of the model games. Yeah, there's a lot here. But let's just make a new chapter. I'll sort this out another day. So this is like bishop e3 and f takes e3 nuances. Let's make some summaries because, yeah, this comes up in my game so often and I'm always making the same mistakes. So I really want to make sure I'm not losing these games because it's like one of the most common structures. It's just bishop e3, and yeah, I've been playing with h5. I know it's slightly dubious, but definitely playable realistically. And we're looking at this queen d2. So, so one interesting thing to note about queen d2 is that we can plant a bishop on f5 much more easily. For instance, so if we play knight h6 here, and they play bishop d3, bishop f5, and I'm just going to make a note. Normally, this isn't working out so well after bishop takes h6, bishop takes h6, bishop takes f5, g takes f5, with a slightly weak pawn structure. So this is normally the problem. However, with the queen on d2, with queen d2 played, bishop takes h6 hits the queen. remember there's no keys. So basically, yeah, this is not working because of this. And this, of course, is a big blunder because we can take the queen. So, okay, this is the first thing to note. So we can actually develop bishop f5. This wasn't clear to me before. And what else was there? So we also wanted to understand positions where they basically play with h3. And let's just do this move order to make it separate. And we were trying to understand, in this position with h3, we're trying to understand these kind of positions. So engine often favors often thinks black is fine after knight takes e3. However, practically speaking, white gets a solid center and the f file. So we need some guidelines here. And I think I'm going to put only play for knight takes e3 if we can establish a bishop on f5. So I think this was the kind of position where I was looking, I think we gave like maybe knight f3 as the move. For the record, I think bishop d3 is therefore going to be a very interesting move that we should try and understand. But let's say if knight f3, then this is now strong. Or maybe not even, yeah, okay, let's look at it here. So knight takes e3, and if fe3, bishop f5. So here, here the bishop blocks the f file. So this looks much more playable for black. My only concern, though, is if bishop d3 ever gets played, what are we actually doing here? Are we taking or not? And interestingly, they don't take. Just playing with like e6. Really, an e6? Okay, so I want to consider both of these moves, actually, just to try and understand this a bit better. So if e6... What happens if they take? Normally, I feel like taking is normally good for them. Wow, so we can take with the e-pawn. I love this, actually. I love this. So I'm going to put, this is dubious. And I'm going to say, don't open, don't allow an open f-file when, don't allow an f-file. Otherwise, it's practically too difficult to play. Okay, so this is really important, and therefore, e6 is a great move. And wow, we can even take e takes f5 with equality. So what's the point? Are we just going to quickly get the knight into e6? Is this the point? Castles, queenside, knight d7. Yeah, so castles, queenside, knight d7? And what's the point? If they play like rook h1... Even h4 here, I love to see it, right? Like controlling this g4 push. And I want to see if like knight f8 is a good move here. Yeah, so we see knight f8, it definitely popped up for a second. Yeah, knight f8 is around here. So getting this knight to e8, e6, sorry, this is exactly what we want to see. Very nice, very nice. So this is also very interesting. So now the open f file is not so useful, and we will bring a knight to e6. Yeah, so I think this is really interesting. Okay, so yeah, then there was that move, right? Bishop d3, and I see there's some messages in chat, so let me read this. So this was Frizz's answer about the earlier c5. So let's go back to that position and have a look at why Frizz reckons c5 was a good move. Because to me, it doesn't make so much sense, to be honest. Like, I much prefer this bishop f5 and trying to block the f-file. So counter-attacking white's center, have a natural developing square for the knight, and have a semi-open c-file maybe attack white's king. So personally, I feel like with the king still in the center, it's not the right time to open the game. And yeah, when we are counter-attacking white's center, this is typically a good idea when the pawn is still on f2 or f4, because this is kind of like the weak base of the pawn chain. But in this position, the weak base of the pawn chain is actually e3. So actually finding ways to maybe bring a knight to f5, put the bishop on h6, I think this makes much more strategic sense than trying to go after this d4 pawn. That's my feeling. And maybe the position would be easier to play if we don't take on e3 and play c5 straight away. Aha, right, so just avoiding this taking on e3. So in this kind of position, maybe just playing c5. So yeah, this is, I think you're right, strategically you can see that the engine is dropping in eval, but there's just one refutation, which is this dc5, making use of the bishop on e3. And the point is when they take, I guess the queen is also doing a good job of keeping tabs on this pawn. And I guess maybe if there's no way to, win back this pawn, then maybe we're just the pawn down. And that pawn could be quite annoying if white gets some queenside initiative going with all these pawns. So yeah, very interesting position. I wanted to just finish up with this bishop d3 move, right? Because my rule was I want to be able to take when I can plant a bishop on f5 and be able to secure the position so that we can always take back with the e-pawn. But right now, if we take and play with bishop f5, we're not in time to go e takes f5, right? We have to take with the g-pawn. So I'm wondering what to do here. Interestingly, again, now c5 is working. And what's the difference here? Why can't white take on c5? Well, now we can take, and here this is a different story. We've got d4. So really, really interesting. Here, the center is weak enough to actually play c5 and get away with it. So that's really interesting. Since we can't establish a bishop on f5, and recapture e takes f5, then it's best to not take on e3 and instead play for c5, undermining the center, right? Definitely undermining the center when the pawn is not on e3, right? So in this position, this is sometimes an idea, but white is not able to keep hold of a pawn. And basically now, this is now a very strong move, and white has to choose between losing material or a crippled double E file pawn structure. Yeah, so then this is just completely winning. So yeah, really, really interesting to get to the bottom of these nuances, because yeah, I come across this plan with bishop e3, knight c3 all the time. So many people are just playing this against all moderns, and for sure, yeah, nobody really understands what they're doing. So if I can understand it, then this is going to be a huge practical edge. So the first thing to realize, queen d2, yeah, I've got my preparation in this position with queen a5, which I'm not going to reveal. And yeah, h3 just transposes to what we discussed with knight f5. And then also this bishop d3 can be met with bishop f5. Okay, that's really, really good to know. And let's just see actually why. What is the move here? Knight f3? Aha, not playing with queen d2. Yeah, this was the game where I had this league match where my opponent played bishop f4 here. I played knight d7. They played queen d2. I played knight f8. And they played bishop d3. And this was where I actually had this move knight e6. And I remember this very vividly. They can take on f5 and they can take on f4. And this was the tactic I missed in the game. Because basically I'm threatening a check. No, I'm threatening bishop h6, I think. I think this was the point. So I can take, and when they take, I don't just take back, otherwise I'll be a piece down, but I can play bishop h6, and this is then working very strongly. So I think this line was good. Yeah, so this was a very nice idea. Yeah, and I think, yeah, after bishop f4, knight d7, yeah, this bishop d3 was strong though. Right. And if I play knight f8, they cannot play queen d2 due to my tricks. They can play knight e2. So this is the best play. I'll need to study this properly at some point. I don't mind being allowing the position to be +1 if I've got some dynamic play. And you see, this is where like this h4 idea to stop any g4 ideas, this is much harder to achieve when the pawn is on f2, because whenever they go g4 and I try and take, they take back with the pawn, they can still dislodge my knight with g4. So when the pawn is on e3 or when the pawn is on f4, then this h4 move is much stronger. So yeah, this position's a little bit tough. I mean, if anyone plays this online, they're probably using an engine, to be honest, because they have to be so precise not to avoid any tactical pitfalls. So practically speaking, I'm probably fine. But yeah, how can I play in this position? Again, why isn't c5 working now? Maybe c5 looks like a good way to try and play the position. Okay, so dc5 is just very strong. Yeah, and I don't really have enough going for me here. What if I start with knight e6? Yeah, this is where this pawn structure ain't so pretty. Yeah, I don't have tactics to save myself. Yeah. So actually then, yeah, on this bishop d3, then I think this knight f8 isn't working so well. Yeah, I can be here all day analyzing these lines. Damn, queen b6 with some very sharp line of taking on b2. That's pretty wild. But yeah, this move looks really natural. Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, I think a lot of players would blunder queen d2 here, to be honest, because it feels much more natural than trying to move a knight. So I think this could still be a line. I just want to make sure I've got something playable against knight e2 in case this does come up while I'm here, you know. f6 is an interesting move, to be honest. f6 is an interesting move. Although it doesn't make too much sense right now, because actually this pawn is very well protected, right? How can I get good play? What is the problem with just playing e6? I know it looks really, really awkward with the knight on f8, right? But let's say, yeah, they play queen d2. Yeah. It's just a bit slow because probably the bishop wants to come out and the knight's just blocking the way. The knight probably just has to go back or something. And if e6 here, and queen d2, yeah, this is tough. This is very tough. This is very tough to make work. So bishop d3, knight f8, bait for queen d2, which is a blunder, knight e2. And actually, okay, maybe the best way to try and work out what the best move is to look at some of white's other options and see how does black naturally play. And then we can understand, like, what is the kind of general plan here. I promise I'll move on from this soon. I'm just very invested in this kind of position. So let's imagine a move like bishop h2, a non-committal move. Then, okay, black actually wants to be playing with bishop h6. Right, control some of these dark squares, stop a castle's queenside. So yeah, let's say they just make a nothing move. Let's say they give us a move. So actually knight e6 is working out well, huh? So what I want to understand then is like, okay, if they play knight e2, why is knight e6 not going so well? So here white can play either bishop takes f5 or bishop c1. Why is that plus 1.5? And then this position is like equal, right? Like to me that makes absolutely zero sense. So let's go one by one. So the first thing to realize is that actually this knight f8 is threatening to gain a tempo on this bishop because they're going to be able to recapture our knight, right? That's the benefit of having the knight on e2. So yeah, so that's one problem. That's one problem. And yeah, if they were to just move away somewhere, oh, then d4 is collapsing, I see. So knight e2 is actually very important, not only for strengthening the bishop, but also the pawn. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what if like white was to strengthen this pawn in another way? Or maybe that's the point. Maybe knight e6 is just a really powerful threat, and knight e2 is the only way to deal with it. And queen d2 is very natural, but we know it doesn't work. So if knight e2 were to be played here, yeah, we don't get in knight e6. And how ugly is this idea that Engine is recommending, this bishop h6? Like, it looks really wrong, right? But actually, you know what? This bishop is kind of blunted. Maybe it makes sense. Maybe it makes sense to activate this bishop here. And let's say they play queen d2, which I feel like is a very natural move, and we take. Okay. I would have thought that taking with the queen is more natural. Let's have a look at both. But let's